All right, let's see if this is continuing to work for me. Hopefully so. The problem I have is it takes so long for the videos, the way I'm doing them now, to upload to stream that I don't know there's a problem until like maybe 2 hours from now. So, but we'll do the best we can. All right, now that we have our spreadsheet laid out, we're going to import some data. Your data can come from a different variety of sources. It can have all kinds of different file formats. It could be a database. So for instance, it could be a Microsoft Access database. It could be a Word document. It could be something that you found on the internet. Or it could be just another type of spreadsheet file that you're pulling information from. So there's all kinds of ways you can pull information in to Excel, and hopefully we won't have too many issues with setting them up. All right. And make sure you read through the textbook because it's going to talk about things like XML, markup language. That's a type of format for data exchange. And it's going to mention a few of those things in the text. All right, so we're going to start off by importing data from a text file. And I've already downloaded all those extra files that showed up in the homework, the textbook projects. So make sure you have those downloaded or this is going to be difficult. So this sheet is active. I'm going to click in A5 just so I know it's active. I am going to go to my data tab. And on my data tab, you can see I have some buttons here in the Get and Transform data box. And the first thing I want to do is pull in things from a text file. So I'm going to choose from text/CSV to start off with. All right, so then it's going to ask me where the file is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my downloads because that's where they're all at this moment. And I may have to sort of search, maybe not. Actually, that's right here. So I need the support EX7 branch 82410 file. So you can see the little Excel symbol there. And I'm going to choose that one and hit my import button. And I'm going to give it a moment because it's going to go into the query setup that Excel has. All right. So this is what pops up. I'm going to go down here to my load arrow and click that. And I'm going to choose load to. And I'm going to give it a moment. I want it to go into my existing worksheet. And I want it to be in part of a table. So I'm going to choose existing worksheet here. Okay. And that will place the data that I have in the current worksheet. Once I have that selected, I'm going to hit OK. And you're going to see the little query pane pop up on the side. And here's the thing. The ability to change the way data looks has a lot to do with this. All right. I'm going to close this pane for now. You'll see it brings it in as a table. The formatting is going to be off, which is fine. We can go and fix that easily. So we're going to actually format this, what we call the CSV data. All right, and I'm going to click to make sure that I'm active in this table so that I get my tabs up here at the top. I'm going to uncheck the banded rows to get rid of the banded rows. I'm going to uncheck the header. It's going to ask me if I want to do that, and I'm going to do it. So that gets rid of the header. And then I'm going to come up here and delete row 5. So I click row 5, right click, and hit my delete button, and it moves everything up. All right. Sometimes the data that you pull in is going to have some inconsistencies, and you're going to have to reformat it as you go along. So it's important to make sure that the data that you pull in, you look at it closely and you fix the things that are wrong without changing any of the values. There are actually some text functions in Excel that help you convert numbers to text, or you can fix inconsistencies with things like capitalization. If sometimes when you pull things in, it puts an extra space where you don't want it. So there are actually functions that will remove those as well. And then there are functions that'll let you keep part of a cell's contents or actually put pieces together. So lots of different types of text functions that you can use. All right. So let us pull in a couple of things here. Well, we're going to do it with this. So you'll notice the category here, there's some problems with spacing. You've got some extra spaces that we don't necessarily need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here below all the data I pulled in, and I'm going to use a trim function to fix this. I'm going to type in equals and start to type in trim. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim cell B5. All right, and that's as much as you have to do for that function. It's a very simple function. And then I'm going to hit enter. All right, and you can see that it fixes the problem there. And I'm going to use my fill handle to drag it down so that I can get all my other ones set up. And then what I'll do is I'll repaste these over the ones that I've got at the top. So while this is selected, I'm going to hit Control C to copy it. I'm going to go up to B5 and right click. So I get my shortcut menu. And then up where my paste options are, I'm going to paste just the values. Okay. And then I can come down here at the bottom and delete these. So I'm going to use my delete key. And that fixes that problem. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and hit my save button to be safe. Because I'm about to move into the access part, and access is known to be clunky and kill things while you're trying to work. So we're going to make sure that we don't have that problem. So we're going to import information from an access table next. Access is a database. It lays things out in tables, so you can pull tables really easily into Excel. This information is going to go in A10, so I'm going to click A10. And then I'm going to go back to my data tab, and I'm going to click the get data arrow. And I'm going to go down to database, and I'm going to choose from access database. There are other types of databases that are out there, but this is the one that we've downloaded. All right, and it's going to pick up on the one that I've downloaded earlier. And I'm going to click that so that it's selected. All right. And I can even double click it up here to get it started. All right, the thing about this is it will list the tables that are in that sheet, and you'll see that there's an MI branch here. I'm going to click that table, and it's going to give me a preview in that navigator box. And I'm actually going to edit this a little bit. So I'm going to come down here and click the edit button. There's a couple things I don't need, so I'm going to get rid of them. And in this case, the policy numbers, I don't have a column for them in my table, in my spreadsheet. So I am going to click this heading so that it's selected. And then going up in this Power Query Editor window, I'm going to choose the Remove Columns button so that I get rid of that column. All right, so once I have it done, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to click Close and Load. And then I'm going to choose Close and Load again. All right, so if you look, I made an error because I should have chosen Close and Load too. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to delete this tab and I'm going to do this again. I'm not perfect, I make mistakes. So I'm going to hit delete, really quickly. Going to go through those steps again. And this is good because if you mess up, it shows you how you can fix it pretty easy. I'm going to close this pane over here. Edit. I'm going to get rid of that extra column. And this time when I hit close and load, I'm going to choose close and load to so that I get this little window and I can put it in my existing sheet, which is the step I missed before. All right, and then I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to pull it in. It takes it a second sometimes. And then I can format that data. So with A10 selected, I'm going to go up here and uncheck the banded rows. I'm going to uncheck the header row and hit yes so that it takes care of that, and delete row 10. Like I did before. And I'm going to hit save so that I can move on to the next set of data. All right. So the next set is web data, and you pull it in from a web page. Most of your web pages use a file format called HTML, which stands for Hypertext Markup Language. And it's pretty much, it's like a text file, but it just has a couple of other things in it. But we're going to pull information from a text file and put it in here. And your text file, you've already actually downloaded it from the files that we have in the text project. So I'm going to go to A15 and going back to my data tab, I'm going to hit the From Web button. And here's the thing, it asks you for a URL, and I'm going to tell you to do this a little bit differently, only because I've run into problems with this in the past. So in order to do this, I'm going to hit cancel for a second. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and open that file that I have in my downloads. So I'm looking for one that says HTML that has the support EX7 branch 70635. I'm going to double click it and open it because you have to follow a path in order to get there, and depending on where you save it determines how easy it is to put in. And sometimes when you go by the directions in the book, it's not necessarily where you saved it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the URL from here. All right, and I'm going to go back to that Excel sheet and then go through the steps. So I'm going to do from web, and when it pops up and asks me for the URL, I'm going to paste that URL I just copied in there. And that takes care of a lot of my major issues. It's probably going to mark it wrong, but this way you can actually import the data without having a problem. And we're going to give it a second. All right, so we're going to choose the Mayor branch here, and you should get a little bit of a preview. All right, I'm going to do the edit button. Let it load. I'm going to click this first column here, and I'm going to change the way it's sorted. I'm going to sort it in ascending order because everything else in my sheet starts with auto. I'm going to click the column heading in the second column, and then I'm going to shift click. So I'm going to press my shift key down and go over to the 2021 online and click so it selects everything in between. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to change the decimal setup here, the data type. I want to change this to a whole number. And that's going to help right align them. All right, once I have that set up, I'm going to go and do close and load again. And I'm going to do close and load 2. so I can put it in the existing worksheet. I'm going to make sure this says B5 instead of A5. And that's because there's no branch data in this file. So it needs to go over a column. So I'm going to hit OK, and you can see it pulls it in that column B. All right. So I'm going to click B15 so that I can get to the design to undo the banded rows and the header, like I've done before. We can delete row 15. And then in A15, I'm going to type in the branch number, which is 70635. Then I'm going to drag my handle down to copy it. All right. And then I'm going to close the pane over here on the side. All right. So next is Word data. And the Word data, we're going to end up copying and pasting it. And it's a little different because you're going to use a transpose paste because the information is not arranged the same way it is in this sheet. All right. So I'm going to go to my file that I have here in my downloads, which is the support EX7 branch 18624. And I'm going to open that Word document. All right. And then once it's open, I am going to drag through columns 2. And this is where it gets tricky. Oops, let me hit enable editing up here. I'm going to drag through columns 2 through 6. And I'm going to hit Control C to copy it. All right. And I'm going to close the file once I copy it. And I'm going to go back to my Excel sheet. All right, in A30, we're going to do this further down because we're going to play with it a little bit. So I'm going to come down to A30 to start off with here. And I'm going to hit Control V. And the reason I'm doing that is I have to do some rearranging to get this to work. All right. So what we're going to do is a transpose. I'm going to keep this selected. I'm going to hit Control C to put it back on my clipboard. And then I'm going to go back up to A20 and click there. All right, I'm going to go to my paste arrow. And in that selection there, in that gallery, I am going to look for the transpose button, which is here. And it's going to flip the column rows around a little bit. Those headings are going to move over to a column. They're still not perfect. We're still going to have to do a few things to them, but this is how we get it started. And I'm going to click that transpose button so it puts it there. It makes it a little bit easier. All right. I'm going to do A20 through A24. I'm going to unclick the wrap text button to start off with. And that way, when I go to split this column in half, put it into 2 different columns, I don't have that problem. All right, now I can go down here and delete this data that I stuck. I'm going to hit delete. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a drag and paste. So I'm going to select these dollar amounts and I'm going to drag them over a column so they're in the right place. All right. And you can also use Control X and then Control V to do it. Control X will cut it. Control V will paste it. A couple different ways you can actually do it. All right. So now that we've got that moved, we can go back over here to A20. And I'm going to select A20 through A24. And I'm going to get ready to convert the text to columns, which means I'm going to split these 2 sets of information into 2 separate columns. On my data tab, I have a text to columns button here. And I'm going to click it and it's going to launch a little wizard, which will help me set this up. I'm going to choose fixed width. And what that will do is it will tell it that the fields are set up, that there are spaces between each field in the column so that it knows where to split it. All right. I'm going to hit the next button. And you can see the line here in this little setup splits them. Now, here's the thing. You'll notice that when it gets ready to split them, I'm going to have an extra space. And I don't necessarily want that extra space. All right. So let's see if it tells you in the instructions, you can do that. Well, I guess we're not going to set it up right away. I'm going to hit next. I'm going to leave all these in here the way they are set up. So I'm just going to hit finish and it pulls it in, and it didn't do the extra space. So we're in good shape. All right. Now, all we have left to do in this portion of it is to replicate the formulas. So if we go back up to here to the top, since we've already done the work here, we can set this up where we can pull the formulas down. Okay. So I'm going to do the percentages first. I'm going to grab my fill handle. And I'm going to, oops, hold on a second. I'm going to drag that fill handle down to the bottom of my data. So it will fill in. Now, here's the thing. I forgot to do the formatting to make it a percentage. So I'm going to run back and do that real quick. So we're going to do a percent with 2 decimal places. All right. And then we can come over to I and J. We only have to pull this one down to row 9 because we only have that many categories, and you can see it pulls the categories over. And then now that we've got that done, we don't need the dummy data anymore, and we can delete row 4. All right, and hit your save button, and I will see you in the next video.